Why you simp for Camgirls. My name is Luke Vu, PhD, clinical psychologist, mental health expert, helping young men overcome digital addiction, depression, and anxiety. In our last video, we discussed how Camgirls can seduce you into attachment. In this video, we talk about the factors that make you vulnerable to falling in love with Camgirls and creating unhealthy attachment with your favorite Camgirl performer. Quick disclaimer, I'm not your psych, this isn't treatment, and if you need a psychologist, you should find a registered qualified psych in your area. For this first section, I'm going to discuss some psychological processes that accelerate a perceived connection. Coolidge Effect and amplified arousal. The Coolidge Effect refers to the phenomenon of renewed sexual motivation due to sexual novelty. Essentially, a new sexual partner will always be more arousing than a familiar sexual partner. This means that if you're in a long-term relationship, there's a hardwired bias to finding a webcam model as more sexually attractive than your current partner, because she isn't your partner. Let's face it, you've already selected this model with your preferred visual and behavioral traits, but this arousal is amplified simply because it's new. We perceive this enhanced sexual arousal as psychological excitement, physical arousal, and even a perceived connection, and it can feel extremely rewarding. This excitement is really entertaining, and it's what you're initially paying for. Now, if you haven't felt this type of intense emotion for a while, you could be making the mistake of valuing this online connection over the ones that exist in your daily life. By comparison, your familiar partner isn't going to generate this intense emotion, and the Camgirl does. And you might conclude that I should be with that person that makes me feel excited and giddy. What started off as entertainment can slowly feel real because of the elevated levels of excitement and repeated consumption. Let's entertain a thought experiment. Even if you live out this fantasy and end up living happily ever after, that relationship will become your real life one, and that initial excitement will fade, because it too will run out of its novelty and become familiar. It's the trap of chasing an intense and transient feeling, and incorrectly assuming that it's real and permanent. Online sex and the emotional catch-up. So the unique part of interactive online sex is the context and situation where the virtual physical intimacy precedes emotional intimacy. Granted that this does happen in real life too. Since you've experienced physical vulnerability with each other, the barriers to emotional intimacy are much lower, and you're more open to trusting her. Ultimately, you permit yourself to connect more rapidly. With repeated sexual interactions, it's only natural for you to share an emotional intimacy where you may disclose something about yourself and feel validated, and vice versa. The best webcam performance will make you feel whatever you're lacking. That is, the feeling of being wanted, desired, safe, comforted, appreciated, or needed. This is how entertainment can slowly be experienced as genuine attachment if you're not careful. Repeated exposure and familiarity. Repeated exposure breeds familiarity and connection. If you already shared a sexual vulnerable experience together online, and she's recognizing you and greeting you by your name, this will undoubtedly add to this false notion of a real connection. The more you see her, the more familiar and comfortable you feel, and all she wants to do is make you feel whatever you lack in your daily life. Friction-free positive emotion. Interactions with webcam performers tend to be frictionless and positive, and this is simply good customer service and business practice. There's no conflict, you feel acknowledged, heard, and your requests are fulfilled. You're paying for the removal of any ups and downs of messy real-life partnerships. Disagreements, compromise, and conflict do not exist in fantasy relationships. But we sometimes mistakenly think that this is the way relationships should be, when they really aren't. Fantasy and projection. This is where many of my patients get caught. It's indulging in the fantasy or fairy tale that extend beyond the boundaries of the transactional relationship. You may have thoughts of meeting up or saving her from this line of work and living happily ever after. And saving her from what exactly? Her income, her profession that she chose. Although the point of this online service is to entertain a sexual fantasy, it's an error to carry those fantasies with you when you go offline. It's the wish to turn fantasy into reality and your mind filling in the gaps and projecting into the future. It's important to remember that the way that she's making you feel isn't exclusive, because it's her job. So those are some of the psychological factors that accelerate connection. The next part is about the emotions that you bring to the dynamic. Your own thoughts, emotions, and internal states amplify attachment. So let's look at some internal factors that might make you more likely to buy into a Camgirl relationship. Loneliness. You might be feeling lonely or isolated, and you feel that your social needs are insufficiently met. Webcam models present a convenient way for you to pay to have your desire for social connection satisfied in an artificial way. Sure, it's effective in relieving loneliness in the moment, but it's not really an adequate or sustainable substitute for social connection. When you stop paying for that service, the loneliness will return, often with interest. This is because you've neglected your current relationships, or you've missed opportunities for more stable and fulfilling social connections. Low self-worth. You might be feeling that you aren't worthy of having real-life relationships. You might be really critical on yourself. I'm unlovable. Why would anyone want to be with me? If you feel unworthy of being able to offer value to a real-life partner, it's likely you're turning to the cam model because her profession requires her to be accepting of you. Her attention and her warmth as a paid service can resemble the kind of behaviors you would want in a loving romantic partner. Your brain doesn't really know the difference, and even if you do, you might be willingly living in this fantasy because reality bites. Escape and life dissatisfaction. You could be really unhappy with your current romantic partner. You might have a mismatch in sexual expectations and interests. You might have unmet relationship needs, or you guys fight like honey badgers every night. Webcam models might be an escape from the dissatisfaction of your reality. In addition, your webcam relationship might be the only way that you feel you can meet your sexual needs without having to deal with the discomfort of addressing them with your partner. Anxiety and fear of rejection. Sometimes camgirl relationships occur because our anxiety or fear prevents us from pursuing more meaningful, real-life relationships. Dating is really hard. It's exhausting, and you might have had several negative experiences. Maybe you've experienced rejection or judgment as you navigate real-life social interactions. The comfort of a screen and a webcam where your interactions can take more time to formulate, where there is already a sense of acceptance, is far less daunting. Fear of judgment and conflict. Perhaps you have concerns about your sexual interests and you have difficulty communicating these needs to your partner. Maybe they're taboo, maybe your partner has different values to you. Perhaps if you raised any of these issues to your partner, it might create intense and distressing conflict. By definition, webcam models are non-judgmental, and you might see the service as a necessary evil to keeping the peace. Fears related to physical sex. Webcam relationships provide a low anxiety environment when it comes to sexual interactions, because you might have had a previous negative sexual experience. This could be performance anxiety, erectile dysfunction, sexual health issues, or experienced sexual trauma or abuse. Your anxiety about having to re-experience this might bias you towards a digital relationship where you feel more control and less risk. Unfortunately, this often delays making progress in resolving these issues in real-life settings. In short, you might be vulnerable to unhealthy attachment or falling in love with a camgirl for lots of reasons. I hope you found this useful. Don't forget to hit subscribe. I'm Luke Vu. Be kind, be you. Catch you next time.